Hey everyone, it's Scurvy once again, and here's the follow-up video to my review on What is a Woman by Matt Walsh. Um, so there's a couple things that I kind of want to talk over. First thing is actually the quality of the video itself. Um, I know my videos aren't that good a quality, you could say, but you know, it was actually kind of fun making this review and just watching it again, watching the movie again. So that way I kind of get it a little more. And I guess the parts where it shocked me on first viewing, didn't shock me as much, so I could kind of go with it a bit more objectively, you could say. But whether like whether or not you think the review is good, I had fun with it. I'll tell you that. And obviously you are allowed to criticize it, yeah, if I did something or if I wasn't being honest with something or whatever. Go ahead. You could outright say, the video sucks. I wouldn't really care all that much because I'm a hobbyist when it comes to making videos. It's not something I'm trying to be famous for or anything like that. But I guess when it comes to really controversial videos, I absolutely don't mind taking care of business by doing something like this, by making that follow-up video. But yeah, whether you thought it was good, whether you thought it was bad, all I know is that I had fun making it, and I stand by what I said. And while I stand by what I said, I do want to elaborate on what I said, and also give you a perspective from where I'm coming from. Because I know I've gotten a little bit of pushback from this. I even had some people say, "Scurvy, you're far right." Even my own parents think that I'm some far right edgelord. But no, I'm not an edgelord. I'm not a far right edgelord. I could be a little edgy at times, but that's always been my style of humor since years. um, but aside from that, it's my I'm just your average right-leaning person. I wouldn't say I'm a right-winger because I don't agree with the right on everything. But this is something I definitely agree, the whole thing with gender ideology, that's something I definitely agree with the right on. Um, and that has its reasons too, which I will get into. But I think something else that's important when it comes to this is actually my perspective, on life in general, and as to how I went about making this review. So, for context, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any sort of religion. I don't, whether that religion have right-leaning principles or left-leaning principles, I don't believe in it. For the sole fact that atheism is largely about getting rid of superstitious thinking. So, that's a major reason as to why I made this video. I don't believe in the religion of gender ideology because I don't believe in any religion. But also the way that I think about things now, it's a lot different than when I was a freshman in college. I recently graduated and all that, and I will say, I'm a lot smarter of a person. Okay, I think I phrased that wrong. I became a lot smarter when, after I graduated. So I guess college did its goal that way, but not in the way that they wanted me to be. If you could kind of pick up on that. But anyways, the way that I think, I like to use the scientific method to kind of think like major life choices, because like especially when it comes to stuff like that, it's like you need to be like well researched when it comes to making a final decision. Like you need to have perspectives of loads of different people, even those you disagree with. Like right now, like I'm mainly looking like at getting like a job right now. I'm planning on going to grad school in like a year's time, but the thing is, it's like even when it comes to like finding a job, like that's a bit of a decision too, because it's also gonna inhibit like free time and all that. Like there's a lot that goes into it, and you have to be able to look at like previous, like I guess studies, you could say, or well, in the context of finding a job, or going to grad school, you might want to look at the statistics, because there aren't really going to be any studies about making that decision. But in general, like you're gonna be finding that statistics is your friend when it comes to that. But when it comes to something like, I guess, like life-altering surgery, it's like whether it be to whether it be for something like I'm trying to think of I guess like even something like brain surgery. This is the one that kind of came on the top of my head. It's like you need to have a well-informed opinion about like what you are going to get, and what might happen to you after you get that surgery. Like it's important to know. And so that's where I have problems when it comes to the surgeries itself, because once again, in the words of Scott Nugent from the film, like they're highly experimental. There's not too many studies about the surgeries and how people feel after the surgeries. Like there's not enough information to really make that kind of claim where, oh, the surgeries are the best things in the world, and if you're suffering from gender dysphoria, like get the surgery. In my mind, I think you're shilling for big pharma, but that's besides the point. Like there is just simply not enough information to make a well-informed decision. So when it comes to stuff like that, sometimes it's better not to do the decision. Like sometimes it's better not to go through with that. Like, and I think, and from reading testimonial after testimonial on like sites like Reddit, it's like what I see is that these surgeries, for most people who get them, often leave them even more depressed than before they had the surgery. It's like that's putting it a little simply, but you can definitely find stuff that have like people telling others that this was a mistake. I regret getting this. And it's like I can't help but empathize with them. Like it's like I do feel bad for them. Like, but I guess at the same time, it's like you might have wanted to do a little bit more, I guess, research. But also, before I move on to, I guess, the next point, I do want to bring up like I guess going back to the atheism thing, when it comes to the rhetoric itself of gender ideology, the way that I see it, like whenever I hear somebody say, like, I'm a woman trapped in in a man's body, or the other way around, it's like, so now you're engaging with the idea of souls. Now, and I have a feeling this is gonna upset the Christians who might watch this, but there are no such thing as souls. Like, there is no scientific proof of souls. Like, we have a conscience, a highly good version of a conscience, but that doesn't mean it's a soul. You see? And so I tend to, like, and that kind of goes back to my point about, like, disregarding superstitions. Like, souls are superstitions. And, well, I'm not gonna, like, really rip on you on, like, that you feel that way, but I am allowed to question and criticize it. Like, I am allowed to ask, what makes you think that way? And of course, like, tone of voice matters too. But it's like, I don't like walking on eggshells. I like to ask questions up front, especially when it comes to like ideas and choices and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I get my perspective from. Next up, I actually do want to talk about the truth and the phrase "my truth," which I did bring up in the review. The reason why I really don't like that phrase is because the thing is, you are like, when people say "this is my truth," what they are doing is that they're just conflating this idea of perception, like, and how they perceive things to be, but that is not how things actually are. Not all perceptions are true, and, like, in general, like, there's only the truth. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, there's only such a thing as just the truth. Not, like, and that's the reason why I don't use the phrase "my truth," or I don't say "your truth." I say that is your perception of things. But if we take a look at the evidence, and then, then I say my point or whatever. And it could be for anything. It doesn't exactly have to be for gender ideology. Like, it could also be like other things too. Like I'm not really gonna list anything, because, like, I'm not really interested in talking about other current events here. But to me, it's ideologically disingenuous when you say "my truth" and not "here's what I'm thinking." I am going to listen to you a lot more if you say "here's what I'm thinking" and not "here's my truth." And it's just like, when Walsh was doing those street interviews, it's like, that was when the phrase "my truth, your truth" really cropped up. And it's just like, what I was able to gauge from that is just like, people have decided to take up this false mantle of basically arbiter of truth, because what they're doing is that their perceptions are getting so much in the way of, like, of thinking about what is real and what is not, that it's like, how can I take you seriously in a debate? Just how can I? When you're just going to be spouting here's my truth. Men can be women, women can be men. It's just like, but where's the evidence for that claim? Like, I need strong scientific evidence. Like, if you're gonna, like, just as how I, like, when I'm debating, like, a Christian or something, it's like, we're not arguing based on scripture. We're arguing based on scientific facts and theorems. And part of my pursuit for the truth, I'm not talking about my perception here. I'm talking about observable scientific truths that you could see with your own eyes and you could verify with. Like, when it comes to me pursuing that, it's like, I'm not going to let ideology get in the way. It's like, I'm not going to let my way of thinking really like get in the way of that. And if it just so happens that, some, like, there are, like, certain facts of life that are spouted by the right, it's like, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's like, go right ahead, because I know it's true. I verified that it's true, and so it's like, I'm far more likely to agree with you. But in general, like, when it does come down to it, it's like, I think that, like, you should be asking people questions. Like, that is part of understanding the truth, is asking those questions. Like, what is a woman? Like, that is what Matt Walsh does. Like, he's the one who's asking the questions, and the people, he lets the people say their piece. Like, the people being interviewed, like, though that's who's getting the spotlight, is not really Matt himself, but the people he's asking and interviewing. And, like, the only time he kind of interjects in an interview, if there's a piece of information that's important, that the interviewee might have not explained. And one of those examples would be when he talked about Alfred Kinsey and John Money. Like, well, that's something I should have remembered was the full name of Kinsey. It's Alfred Kinsey. And keep in mind, like, I think I even said this in the review, was, like, I know a lot more about the fucked up experiments of John Money than I know about the fucked up experiments of Alfred Kinsey. I know some of them, and I know the consequences of his quote-unquote research. But in general, I'm far more knowledgeable on the evils that John Money did and created. So let's talk about that. I hate having to spoil the film here, but, like, I kind of have to for this point. So, John Money was the guy to really coin a lot of the terms about, like, genders. Like, gender, I think he coined the term gender identity and gender role. I know he definitely coined gender roles, but I'm not quite sure if he coined the whole term gender identity. Might have been Kinsey. My bet is on John Money. Okay, that sounded a little weird. His last name is Money, but enough meandering. Basically, what happened with the twins that Money experimented on, they were born with a rare birth defect that basically like damaged their male genitalia. Like, and that's like the best possible way I could put it. So basically, the guy was taking advantage of like a like a of a birth defect, which I think that's pretty fucked up. And I think the hypothesis might seem innocent enough. Like, if you, and even then I use innocent in quotes, because a lot of fucked up scientific experiments usually try to frame their hypothesis in a more innocent kind of way. And the hypothesis for the experiment was, if you raise a boy like a girl, then they will be that gender. But the thing is, it's like what he wasn't really thinking about, and I think he was just kind of caught up in his own bullshit here, was like, men and women are naturally, they're attracted to different things. Like I guess in general, and this is, I forget the study where this came from, but, or was it like an article, but I know it exists. It's like, boys are naturally geared more towards like creating and building, and girls are more naturally attractive to manipulation. And what I mean by that is when a girl like plays with dolls and such, like I'm using manipulation as like a neutral term here. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, she's using dolls to like learn how to manipulate guys or something stupid like that. I'm saying manipulation, and I'll define manipulation here as such, where it's like you're changing certain aspects of something or someone. And in the context of a girl playing with dolls, it's like, she's manipulating the doll by changing what it wears, the scenarios. But it's innocent, it's innocent fun. But enough about that. Let's get back to money and his study. But the thing is, like, the boy who was most affected by the experiments, it was just like, I think his name was like David. He changed his name to David. I think his original name was like Bruce, and then he changed it to David after going back to, quote unquote, going back to being how like he was born. The thing is, I will say that the stuff that money had the boys do was beyond horrific. Like, and that's where I say like horrific a lot in the interview. It's because, yes, like, this stuff absolutely is. Like, there is no other way to describe what's happening to kids right now. Like, when it comes to them wanting to get double mastectomies or vaginoplasties, like that's the surgical, I think, is the surgical term for what they do to the penis. But basically, in terms of Money's study, it's like he had them like do horrifically like sexual things to each other, all to gain some sort of like dumbfounded conclusion about why, like it, about why some, like, if it, I don't think it's why. I think it's like if it was like possible to see if such a thing could happen, like if the boy would actually start acting like a girl because they were raised like a girl. Um, and we're actually seeing this experiment play out live in many different places, most notably the public school system here in America. It's like it might be rare, because I know, like, I watched a lot of like TikTok clips from libs of TikTok, even though I don't exactly have a Twitter, um, and I don't have a TikTok either, but I do know that libs of TikTok, like, often, like, libs of TikTok will often post these rare occurrences, and it's like it doesn't mean that it's not happening. Like, just because libs of TikTok post something, it's like it doesn't mean it's happening all the time. Like, I will say that, like, I don't think the grooming that's like going on in government schools is like happens all the time. It happens. It absolutely does happen, and there's more than enough evidence. But I think it's more among us, like a select type of teacher, rather than like teachers all over the country. And it's like I do think it happens, and the reason why it happens is because these people, whether they know it or not, are enacting the same type of experiment that John Money did to those boys, with or without the sexual shit happening. Because I find it ironic that a lot of people, well, ironic and horrifying, I should say, that a lot of people who believe in like the gender ideology stuff, like, I find it weird that like they have this, I don't know, this unsavory kind of attitude around kids when they really should not be around kids. If all they're going to talk about is in like their gender identity, like, I don't think that person should really be around children. Um and it's mainly for the reason that it's like what they are trying to do, what these people are trying to do, like what they are trying to accomplish with this grooming, is that they are trying to break down the identity of who the child is. And yes, that like this shit will damage them down the line. It's like there's a reason why there's like, like, people think like being gay or lesbian or bisexual is like this trend now. And like coming from somebody who is bisexual himself, it's like, yeah, there is a trend. It absolutely is a trend that people will just say that they're in the alphabet mafia just to fit in. And it's like, unfortunately, like, that's the case. And unfortunately, elementary schools and public schools, or I should be saying government schools across the nation, are showing that. And in general, what I find to be particularly horrific about that is that whether they know it or not, like, they are going to traumatize these kids later down the line. Like, they are going to be heavily doubting who they are, like what and you know who and what they are. And so like that's another reason why I find gender ideology to be particularly evil, is like the shit that they're doing to kids. And Scott Nugent explains that brilliantly in the film. Like I think she does a particularly good job at explaining the process as to how these kids get hooked, how like the drugs that the puberty blockers have, the and well the surgeries themselves, the surgeries themselves, considering that she got surgery to look more like a male, like like I oh sorry I said I said that earlier in the review, but it's like, yeah, like these kids are to an extent getting groomed to think that they're the opposite sex, or that they don't have any biological sex at all, non-binary. But with that actually being mentioned, I actually want to go into the logic and the like and how inconsistent is. It's like, so in America, right? We have age laws when it comes to alcohol, cigarettes, the army, firearms, the list goes on. And it's just obviously, a child should not be drinking alcohol. And there's reasons as to why, because it will cause brain damage. If a child drinks alcohol, it will cause brain damage down the line. Just like I was gonna say obesity, but just like cigarettes, there's a reason why we have a minimum age requirement of 18 or 21, depending on what we're talking about. And it's just okay, so we're not allowed to, we're not going to give kids alcohol because, that's wrong. But we could let them choose, their gender, and we could let them be on, cross-sex hormones, artificial cross-sex hormones, I should say. And so, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay. But we can't let. But we have a moral obligation to not let kids drink. It's not good for them to drink. You see where I'm coming at from here? It's how is that any kind of consistent? I wouldn't really have much of a problem. It's hey, it's your choice if you want to get these hormones or not. If you want to get the surgeries, I will say, don't say I didn't warn you. But it's your choice at the end of the day. All I could do is merely argue my position. If you still want to get the surgery or get the hormones, I highly advise against it, but I'm not exactly that is the limit of how I'm going to try and quote unquote stop you from doing permanent damage to your body. I guess something else in terms of consistency, and I'm gonna go back to the movie here. What I want to talk about here is so there are other kind of you could say trans things, they're it's all under the umbrella of the ideology known as transhumanism. There's stuff like transableism, where people want to think that, I was meant to be, an amputee, or I was meant to be crippled, or I was meant to be autistic, and that's how I feel inside. Um, and it's just like, to those who actually have disabilities like myself, it's like, I think it's horrific. I think it's horrific that people would go so far as to wanting to not live life without an arm, or go through the curse of being autistic like myself. But the thing is, it's like, there's also other stuff like transracialism. I think that's the term. Where you have people who are like, deep down, I'm a tall African American man, or something like that. And so, they start acting, they start acting out, like they start acting like black when they're not. And keep in mind, I don't even really like saying that term. Like, I don't really like saying like white or black, because it's not exactly an accurate thing to describe skin color. But in general, it's like, you're not really supposed, like, it's something you not really supposed to be thinking about. And I will think, like, you have way too much free time on your hands if that's the greatest struggle you have in your life, is that you think you're something that you're not. And so it's like, while I am willing to empathize, like, I absolutely I cannot sympathize with the position. And yes, sympathy and empathy are two different things. But in general, it's like, so transableism, transracialism, bad, right? But by that logic, like, transgenderism has to be bad too. It's not? Like, how? It's like, how is what I described here in this video about transableism and transracialism any different than a man feeling like he's a woman? How is that any different? How is that not the same type of body dysmorphia? Like, and like, that's something that I like to, I guess, ask people on this topic. It's like, how is that consistent? Like, how does that, like, also, how does that make, like, any sense? How does that make any kind of sense, Sorry, I'm repeating myself here. Like, videos highly unscripted. It's just something I felt I wanted to do, and kind of felt like I needed to do too. But anyways, it's like, I think a big point here when it comes to the hypocrisies and inconsistencies of logic is, like, you're not really thinking. Like, when you say, oh, transableism, transracialism, or trans anything else that's, like, considered bad is bad, and yet, I should be able to change my gender, and that's not bad, is good. It's like, pick one or the other. Like, this is one of those things where it is kind of an either or type of argument. Like, you're not exactly, like, you can explore different facets of it, but it's like, ultimately, do you believe that, hold on, let me try and, I guess, think this through a little bit more before I really speak. But it's like, are you willing to say, are you, like, if you believe in that you could change, that people can change their genders, then I think you also have to concede to the fact that you should also be able to hack off one of your arms. You should be able to change your ethnicity. like like that's ideological consistency. Whereas I believe that I don't think I don't think you can. Like, I'm on the opposite in that regard. And when it comes to consistency on this topic, it's like, I used to believe in this stuff too. I used to be a leftist. Like 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 when I was like 18 to like 20, like I was very much like a leftist, but I wouldn't say I'm like a hard like I wouldn't say I'm like far left or anything. Like even back then, I would never consider myself far left. It's like I know that there are crazies on both ends. I still think that to this day. That is a consistent belief of mine. Um, but when it comes to like consistency, like the movie does a spectacular point or job, I should say, at pointing out the inconsistencies in logic. It's like, and then also like I mentioned this in the review, that the amount of like circular reasoning that the people being interviewed, or some of the people being interviewed, kind like provide is just like it it doesn't make any sense. Like I mentioned the pin or the badge or the sticker that's being sold on the Daily Wire website of a woman is someone who identifies as a woman, and it's just like the circular kind of thing, like the Ouroboros eating its tail. And it's like, and that's because it is. It's entirely circular. Like there's a reason why the definition of a woman, and spoiler alert for the movie, is an adult human female. There's a reason why the definition is not someone who identifies as a woman. It's like if you want to say, ask the question, what is womanhood? That's a different thing entirely. That's kind of where you can ask people for anecdotes, but understand that womanhood is something that is experienced by a woman, and per the definition of woman, an adult human female, it is an experience that an adult human female goes through. Just like manhood, where it's something an adult, an adult human manhood an adult human male goes through. It's like, yeah, honestly, I'm a little tuckered out from talking about this. Like, my mind in general today has been thinking more about ecology and earthworms more than anything else. But that's kind of the last thing I want to talk about, is the future of this channel. Considering that so early on I'm already going through some backlash, here's what I'm going to tell. Here's what I'm going to tell to these people. Your ideology causes irreparable damage to the people who believe in it. I'm not backing down from any of my positions. I've also explained my position a little bit more thoroughly, even if it was a tad bit rambly. And with that being said, I do think transgenderism and thereby transhumanism is a threat that must be stopped. Like that's where I'm gonna end this argument. But for the future of the channel, like I'm going to talk about like whatever I feel like, and nobody's gonna stop me. Nobody will stop me. YouTube will not stop me, because if YouTube takes me down, I have an Odyssey page, and I'll just keep posting there. Like, I am going to keep on questioning. I'm going to keep on doing my best at learning about the truth about the world, my inquisitive nature like will always prevent me from like staying stagnant about things that I'm interested in. Um, but also it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna back down. Like I'm not apologizing for anything. It's like what I said in the review still stands, and what I say here will still stand. The next video, it's actually going to be about, as I mentioned, ecology and earthworms, as I have kind of gotten an interest in understanding the invasive species that of earthworm that is destroying the soil in 37 U.S. states. So there's that too, and I'm aware that, you know, my opinions can be controversial, but science itself is controversial. No, I'm not saying my opinion is related to science, but like the science that I talk about, that I kind of that I get my opinions from, it's like, yeah. But anyways, next video is going to be about the jumping worms versus the earthworms. Are you on Team Nightcrawler? 'Cause I know I am. And with that being said, thanks for watching.